Welcome to the fourth installment of YPTC's Staying Afloat Arts and Culture series. We're talking about last-minute questions and updates. And there are many. The SBA released 11 more pages of FAQs the night of April 6th, early morning, April 7th. So there's a lot to go over and not much time to start getting it all ready. The SVOG applications will be available when the portal opens today, April 8th. My name is Justine Townsend, and I'm one of the leaders of YPTC's Arts and Culture Specialty Group. Let's get into it. Here's a little information about YPTC. We are a professional services firm that specializes in nonprofit financial management. We work with nonprofits anywhere and everywhere. We have over 800 clients, 8 regional offices, and we are nonprofit experts. So this is our fourth installment of our Arts and Culture Spotlight series. Our focus today, again, is on those last minute questions and updates that were released by the SBA at the last minute. And if you missed any of our prior installments and you'd like to cram for the final that is submitting your application in the portal today, you can go to our YPTC resources page and our Staying Afloat page, and we'll also have another link to our previous presentations at the end on our resource page. So just a few reminders. The new FAQs from the SVOG were on the SVOG were released by the SBA on April 6th. The application portal opens today, April 8th. And even though the PPPL was extended through May 31st, if you're going to get a second draw PPPL, you need to have that done before you apply for the SVOG. You'll need to have your PPP loan number in hand before you apply for the SVOG. So this week we're going to highlight these few last minute changes and questions that have come up. We're going to talk about the tax returns, Form 4506T, proposed budgets, current employee list, and that February 29th, 2020 payroll requirement, the list of venues, marketing materials, job descriptions or contracts required, and monthly revenues. But before we move on, I just want to make a note and draw your attention to the fact that everything you submit in the portal is going to have a file size limit of 35 megabytes per file. And the only file types that they are going to accept are PDF, JPEG, JPEG PEG, and JPEG JPG, just to clarify, .doc, .docx, and Excel spreadsheet. So .xls and .xlsx. Each one of those file types that you submit will have a 35 megabyte file, 35 megabyte limit. So you can submit an unlimited number of files that are 35 megabytes each. It's not in total, you can only submit 35 megabytes. It's each file has to be less than 35 megabytes, and the only files being accepted, and I know this is hard for maybe your marketing or your pictures of your auditorium or your seating or your sound equipment, any of those pictures you may have taken, they need to be either in a PDF or JPEG form. Okay, so first, tax returns. We want to clarify this. If you're a nonprofit and you have a different fiscal year end than the calendar year end, then you might need to provide your 2018 return and your 2019 return. So for example, if your fiscal year end is 5/31, then you will need to provide your 2018 990, which is your fiscal year end 5/31/19, and your 2019 990, which would be your fiscal year end 5/31/20. Once you've completed your 2020 990, which in that example would be a 5/31/2021 990, then you can submit that to the SBA. But you shouldn't need to if you've got that 2018 and 2019 return. Okay, speaking of tax returns, you have to submit the 4506T. This, you can only submit the one that is on the SBA's website though. See at the top here, it says disaster. This is a request for the transcript of your tax returns. This form allows the IRS to send the SBA your tax transcript. The reason that you have to use the one on the SBA's website is because of this disaster piece. The new 4506T forms on the IRS's website do not have this line anymore that's pre-filled here. The form is pre-filled with the SBA name. They don't have that line on the new forms. So if you go to the IRS website and pull that form, you're going to be pulling the wrong form. So you have to use the one located at sba.gov/SVO grant. They're also going to have your dates pre-filled. And these are the dates that are going to be needed by the SBA for the SVOG. Now it's going to default to calendar year end. So if you have a fiscal year end that is different than calendar year end, you will need to update these dates with your fiscal year end. The new information, and I'm going to just encourage you to be very, very careful about this form, because you will get automatically declined if you do not have this form and you do not have it submitted correctly, and you do not have the SBA version of this form. They're going to decline you automatically. So tomorrow or today, April 8th, we're expecting the release of the applicant user guide. I cannot stress enough how important it is going to be to get that and read and review it for every section that applies to your organization prior to starting to submit documents into the portal, because you want to make sure that you're pulling the correct forms. Okay. Now, the proposed budget. This is also new information. And really, I just found this because the FAQs that the SBA released referred to Form 3515 as the application form. And I just knew that the OMB reviews and approves all of those forms and has them on their website. So I was able to go pull the actual application. And here is something we did not know that you were going to have to supply when you file your application, and that is your proposed budget for use of grant funds. This is not the budget for your full organization. This is only the budget for the use of those grant funds. This is the format in which they are going to present it on the application. And this is how it's going to break down. Once you fill out all of the revenue information and submittal of your revenue details, then they will give you a proposed award amount. If it is more than what you need, then, and your proposed budget has to be less than that amount, less than that at least the same or less than your proposed SVOG award amount. So if it is less than, if it's more than what you need that they award you, then you can ask for less through this proposed budget. So if you, let's say they give you your proposed SVOG award spits out at $2 million. First thing you need to do is reduce it by your second draw PPPL. So let's say you got $1 million as your award and you had gotten 100,000 in your second draw PPPL. So now you know that your proposed budget needs to be $900,000 or less, because you have to take that $100,000 haircut for the PPPL. You have to reduce it by that PPPL. So now you have $900,000, but let's say you don't want to qualify for a single audit and you don't need all of that money. So you want to take maybe $700,000. So then your proposed budget amount should just be $700,000. That should be the total of all of these columns combined, or the total of that amount column combined should be $700,000 if that's what you're going to take. It cannot be, your proposed budget cannot be more than your proposed SVOG award amount that the system will spit out. Now, I just want to go over a couple of restrictions very quickly on this budget. So on the scheduled mortgage payment and the scheduled debt payments, very important here, your prepayments of principal cannot be included. So do not include in your budget numbers any prepayments of principal on those debt payments. Independent contractors, you cannot submit more than $100,000 in annual compensation per independent contractor in this budget. So there is a limit there of $100,000 annually per independent contractor. On the capital expenditures, that very last piece right there, our only details are that just may not be the primary use of the funds. You can use some of the money on that, but you don't want it to be a majority. Now, this is a budget. These are estimates. You still want this to be your best possible guess. They're going to allow you some movement between categories, and it's going to be within 10% that you'll be able to move expenses between those budget categories, as long as they're allowable expenses. And then one other side note, I want to make sure that, because the FAQs did say that we can use the grant proceeds for refunds for all those canceled performances. If you have subscribers or ticket holders who you need to refund, then you can use these funds for refunds. And where we are going to include those is in the necessary business expenses. So other ordinary and necessary business expenses, including maintenance costs. And then you've got maybe other or supplies or equipment. Refunds are going to fall in that other. Now, they could put out more guidance on this in the applicant user guide. So I will just say, double check the applicant user guide before submitting your proposed budget and make sure that there aren't any other restrictions beyond that. Okay, now employee list and payroll. We've gotten lots of questions on this, and I think it can be pretty confusing, especially since you have a lot of organizations might have seasonal employees because they have seasonal performances. And so what about all those seasonal employees that weren't working on February 29th? You're providing two lists here, right? So you have to ensure that your February 29th, 2020 payroll covers employees who worked on February 29th, 2020. Then you have your current employee list as of today, April 8th, 2021. you have to provide a list of all those employees and their status. If you furloughed all of your seasonal employees and they're furloughed and they weren't working on February 29th because that was not their season, then you can add them to your current employee list with the status of furloughed. And you can even put furloughed seasonal and put in the normal dates that that employee works so that you can even prove that up. Okay. Now the list of venues. So for people who don't own the venue, for our organizations that do not own their venue, so promoters, theatrical producers, live performing arts organizations, talent representatives, you might have events in non-qualifying venues. As long as your qualifying venues, as long as you utilize qualified venues for the majority of events that occurred in 2019, then you should qualify. You'll need to prepare a list of all venues where events occurred between January 1st, 2019 and February 29th, 2020. And you'll want to include at a minimum the venue and operator's name, the venue address, and the venue URL. And I would just suggest putting that on a spreadsheet. Also, be prepared to submit contracts when with venues where performances occurred in February. So for any performances that you had in February, be prepared to have those contracts prepared. If you did not have any performances in February and you're choosing another month, you can choose any month between January 2019 and February 2020. Again, just make sure you have those contracts and that you have the box office tickets reports for those months. And I would say if you're choosing any other month between January 2019 and February 2020, you want to select a month where you have the most activity in qualifying venues and where it's going to be easiest for you to get those box office reports, those ticket reports. Now, if you have dynamic ticket pricing and your box office reports just have total tickets sold and total dollar amount, you can present a supplemental schedule, a spreadsheet with just how many tickets at each dollar amount were sold, and all of the different ticket prices and areas of the audience. So let's say mezzanine, $20 a ticket to $40 a ticket, and each number of tickets that were sold kind of in that area, especially when you have automatically adjusting dynamic pricing on your ticketing. That could be really hard to pin down because you might have a lot of tickets. So that's when the spreadsheet is going to come in handy. Marketing materials. So some organizations' marketing materials are going to be way too voluminous to PDF and upload into the application portal. So what they're saying you can now do is prepare a list, spreadsheet is fine, with all of your marketing materials, the event that it goes to, and the relevant URLs. Now, understanding that some of these events occurred almost 2 years ago at this point, if you're looking at 2019. So I would suggest, because they're taking social media, those social media URLs don't move. And if you post every event on social media counts as marketing materials. You can link all of those posts because they don't move if things have moved around on your website and you don't have those marketing materials online anymore. Okay. Job descriptions or contracts required. So if you have a sound engineer, a booker, promoter, stage manager, security personnel, or box office manager, in order to be eligible for the SVOG, you have to have at least 2 of these, either employed or contracted. So you will need to provide this documentation for at least 2, but as many as you have. So if your organization has sound engineer, booker, promoter, stage manager, security personnel, and a box office manager all employed full-time, then you're going to provide job descriptions and payroll records for all of those. If you only have a sound engineer and a stage manager and everybody else on payroll, and everybody else you contract with the service provider or you contract with the venue to provide those, then you'll want to provide job descriptions and payroll records for the 2 that you have and contracts with the service providers or the venues as proof. If you only need 2 of those and you don't need the other ones, and so you don't have those in your contracts, you don't have contracts with outside service providers for security, that's okay. You only you're only required to have at least 2 of these. So at least 2 from this list. Now, if you're with a theater that has a stage manager, you contract with this venue, they provide you with a stage manager, you just need to show that that clause is in the contract. Okay, same thing for all of these. Sound engineer comes with the venue, make sure that clause is in the contract and that you can support that. Okay, monthly revenue. Now, last time we talked about quarterly revenue reports, that you were going to have quarterly financial statements for every quarter in 2019 and every quarter in 2020. In addition, you are also going to be required to submit monthly revenue. Now, this is all revenue. This is gross receipts. The only thing that you're going to exclude from this revenue is the disaster assistance funds as defined on the SBA's website. In the FAQ, there's a detail there on what those disaster funds all include, but it's the PPPL, the EIDL, and then any state and local grants, anything that came from the CARES Act or ARPA or the other stimulus package we had there in the middle. Any of those stimulus packages we received, any funds that came out of that, the disaster assistance funds, those are probably going to be excluded, but double check the FAQs if you're not sure. You're going to be required to provide the monthly gross receipts for every month in January, every month in 2019, January through December by month, every month in 2020 by month, and through present. So we're going to do January, February, and March. Now, if you end up submitting very late in April, you probably want to pick up the first couple weeks of April, if you can. The application headers on the application, it is going to say fiscal 2019, and then it's going to say January, February, March, April, May. Fiscal 2020, January, February, March, April, May. The fiscal was a mistake. It's in the FAQs that it just takes too long to get that fixed. So it is calendar month. So it is your 2019. So it's going to be January 2019 gross. And this is just a total dollar amount, your gross receipt. So the total revenue for that month. If there was no revenue for that month, then you're going to put $0. I will refer you directly to the FAQ about those fiscal years because it is a little bit weird, and that is on page 23, question 49 of the new updated FAQs. Again, double check the applicant user guide prior to submitting this monthly revenue piece, just in case there's any more clarity in there beyond what's in the FAQs and what is in the application. Okay, so summary, these are all the things we covered. The tax returns, Form 506T, proposed budgets, current employee list versus that April 29th, 2020 payroll, the list of venues you might need to provide if you're not a venue owner, marketing materials, your job descriptions or contracts required, and your monthly revenue. Once you have this piece down and you've got the pieces down from all of our previous webinars, you should be in a very good place to submit your application in the portal today. But again, double check and read that applicant user guide that's going to get released that we just haven't seen yet. Okay, so next time we are going to be talking about how to track and report the use of all of these funds. And we'll also talk a little bit about the disbursements. And here's our resources. So check out our YPTC news and resources. This is where we have all of our up-to-date. Our previous arts and culture spotlight series installments can be found here and on our Staying Afloat page. And then all of the SBA information is found right here at sba.gov /SVO grant. And that's where you're going to go to get to the portal and to get that applicant user data. One last point that I want to make here is that you will be able to save as you go and log in and out of the portal. But once you submit, it is submitted. And if you submit your application incomplete, they're not going to give you an opportunity to remedy that. If you submit your application with errors in it, they're not going to give you an opportunity to remedy it. So it is better to kind of save as you go and log out. And if you have any issues, then you can contact us. We are here to help, especially if you have some specific questions. Our arts and culture specialty group and our Staying Afloat group are ready, and you can engage with us and we can help you get through this process. Good luck, everyone, and we'll talk soon.